What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About. It's been a couple weeks now since I've released an episode. I had a rough time the last week and a half trying to get out another episode, so I appreciate you all being patient and bearing with me. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody for their continued support and encouragement. A lot of people reached out to me last week when I posted that I was really struggling getting this next episode out and trying to figure out an effective way to share this, I guess you could say. So I appreciate all of you guys for taking the time to listen to this, to share it, to give me feedback, and to really just start conversations. I mean, when I started this podcast, or my hope when I started this podcast, was to be able to educate people on things that maybe they don't know a lot about, but also to start tough conversations around topics that aren't really discussed a lot, or aren't discussed enough, or that people find hard to talk about. So you guys giving me feedback and creating conversations with me and starting dialogues with me in response to these episodes really helps to foster that, and so I'm really grateful for that. Please keep it coming. Please continue to do so. I really appreciate it, and it's part of what makes this whole process so fun for me. So thank you. I went back and forth on what I wanted to talk about this week, if I wanted to continue to try to cover the topic that got me to the point of taking a week off. And ultimately, I came to the conclusion that I needed to kind of share my experience over the last week and a half and talk about something a little bit different and kind of hold off on the other topic for a week or two. So I came to the conclusion that this week I wanted to talk about feeling our feelings. So what does this mean? Feeling our feelings. I know what a lot of you are probably thinking. I don't want to talk about my feelings, or I don't feel comfortable talking about my feelings, or, oh, you know, if you talk about your feelings too much, you're sensitive, or it's kind of seen as a weakness to overly express our feelings or express our feelings at all. And essentially what I mean is when we feel things, whether they be negative or positive, when I say feeling our feelings, I mean allowing ourselves to feel whatever it is in that moment that we are encountering, processing it in a healthy and constructive way, and then moving on from it. I feel like I personally have a tendency sometimes to ignore my feelings or push my feelings down or not want to deal with them, and so in turn they end up building and building and building. And I'm sure all of you know that have experienced this. It only can build so much. And then once it builds to a certain point, it starts to overflow. And all of those negative feelings or those hurt feelings or whatever it is starts to come out. And just like, you know, if you're dealing with a friendship or a relationship and that person is constantly hurting you or saying things that offend you or upset you and you don't ever confront them about it, first of all, they're never going to know that they're upsetting you. And second of all, you're just creating this like rocket inside of you that's ready to launch at any moment if they say something else to you. And that's not good. That's not like a healthy, productive way to deal with our feelings or our emotions. We should deal with them in the moment. So I want to explain this a little bit further, but I feel like we can dive a little bit deeper into the topic through a story. So I want to talk about my experience over the last week and a half. So as a lot of you know, I've been living in New York since the middle of September. And for the most part, it's been really great. I've really enjoyed my time being here. I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. It's given me the alone time and the space to create this podcast and to be able to go take photos and to get myself creatively rejuvenated. Been able to spend more time reading and writing, and so it's been good. You know, it's been really nice to have this space and to be able to go into New York and explore surrounding areas. But I would be lying if I said that I was happy about it all the time, and that at times it didn't feel incredibly isolating, especially with bad weather and that restricting us from going to do things that can really make you feel isolated and stuck. So over the last few months, there have been a lot of moments where I've become overwhelmed with the distance and the loneliness and the isolation, and I get sad and homesick, and I miss Zaire, and I miss my cats, and I miss my friends, and I miss being in LA, and I miss my life there. And trying to be strong for myself, and knowing that Zaire is having a harder time with it, and trying to be strong for her, and also trying to be supportive of the family that I work with. They're going through big transitions right now as well, and trying to be supportive of my sister and the transitions that her and her home are going through right now. It brings up a lot of feelings of overwhelm, and I'm a person who is a caretaker. I like to take care of the people in my life. I like to be there for people. I like to be a source of joy or happiness or a place of peace or calm for people. So that starts to get overwhelming at sometimes too. And so more recently, the feelings that I have been feeling of missing home and feeling overwhelmed with life and just being supportive of the people around me, feelings that I've been feeling of, frankly, burnout creatively. I think it's a common trend with creative people and artists that they get burned out because the industry now, or the ways for us to be successful, at least financially as artists, it depends so much right now on social media platforms and consistency and constantly having to keep creating content, putting stuff out, drawing attention to yourself, keep going, more. And that gets really exhausting and you get burned out. And so I think, over the last 4 or 5 months, I've been prioritizing, creating, making moves towards the future and my career, and what am I going to do after New York, and how can I set myself up for success after New York, and not really taking as much time to be present in the everyday moments, the building moments, the moments that I'm having right now where I'm laying down the groundwork for what's going to happen after New York. And so just kind of recently, over the last couple of weeks, it's all been starting to accumulate. I've been feeling burned out. I've been feeling overwhelmed emotionally with everything that's going on, not only within myself, but with everyone around me. I've been feeling homesick. The weather has been terrible. It's been snowing on and off for almost 3 weeks at this point. And then, I have this podcast. I have this new journey that I'm embarking on creatively and trying to do a good job and be consistent and put out good content and making sure that my topics and my discussions of these topics are thorough and wanting to do a good job. I want this to be a 45 minutes to an hour that people feel like they've gotten something. They've left with a little bit more than they came with. And that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself when you're just starting out. I mean, I've done 2 episodes. I know almost nothing about podcasting except what I know from listening to podcasts. So I think it was just a combination of all of these things that kind of created this perfect storm of a breakdown. So it all happened about a week and a half ago. I was trying to record my 3rd episode of this podcast. And I had toyed around with some ideas of what I wanted the topic to be, and I landed on representation. And I wanted to talk about not only representation in media, but I wanted to talk about representation in politics, in everyday life, in companies and corporations, how important representation is. But every time I recorded it, I would leave things out. It wasn't thorough enough. I focus too much on media or whatever it was. I couldn't get there. I couldn't get it perfect. I tried recording it 3 times. Every time was a complete failure. I wasn't happy with it. I was not pleased with the result that I got. So that had me feeling really down and really low. Here was this thing that I had wanted to do for so long. I had gotten out 2 episodes, and then all of a sudden I was stuck. I couldn't get my thoughts together. I couldn't come up with a cohesive idea or podcast episode that I felt proud enough to release. And at the same time, I'm dealing with the pressure that I'm putting on myself creatively in general, whether it comes to photography or editing videos, like you're not doing enough, you're not doing enough. So then when I started to fail at doing this podcast and recording this episode, kind of compacted down on top of that of like, you're a failure, you're not doing enough. And I just started feeling these negative feelings towards myself, about my creative endeavors and all that. And then on top of that, I've been trying to coordinate with Zaire a time for her to come out to New York to visit. And we had kind of planned this entire idea, and I hadn't even brought it to my bosses yet. And they're dealing with a lot, and they're stressed a lot. And I didn't want to add the burden of, how I was feeling and what I was feeling about missing home and missing my partner and just needing the time to be with her. I mean, I got back from LA for the holidays on January 3rd, and now it's February 16th, and I haven't been with her at all. It's been a month and a half that we've been apart, and, just missing home and missing her and missing my life in LA. I wasn't vocalizing my needs or my feelings because I was worried about other people's needs and other people's feelings. And so that started to make me feel low too. Like, I can't even prioritize my feelings. I'm letting my partner down. She's super stressed because I am too much of a little fucking pussy bitch to go talk to my bosses about, wanting her to come out and visit and vocalizing to them, these are the things that I need to be okay, because I'm prioritizing everyone else's feelings. And so that started to make me feel low as well. And then on top of bad weather preventing you from going places, being cold, it makes you want to stay inside. It makes you want to stay in bed. It makes you want to stay in your pajamas. So all these things kind of compacted on top of each other until I got to last Monday. I tried to record my podcast episode on representation for the 3rd time, and I got about 24 minutes into recording the episode and lost it. I was like, I can't do this. I'm done. Like, this sucks. It's so terrible. I was so frustrated, so mad at myself. I remember turning off all my equipment. I grabbed my phone, I text Zaire, and I just sent her all these self-deprecating text messages like, I'm a failure, I'm never going to get this, I don't even know why I decided to do this podcast, this is stupid, this was a stupid idea, it's too much pressure, why did I think I wanted to do this, going on and on and on and on. And that was really that was my breaking point. At that point, I had completely lost it. And that directly related to the fact that for months and months and months, I was feeling all these feelings, feeling these burnout feelings, feeling these emotionally overwhelmed feelings, feeling these homesick feelings, wanting to go home, missing home, but also, my heart being here with my job and, the people's lives that I'm getting involved with here and the people that I'm helping out here and the things that I'm doing here. So it was just all of these things that had built up for so long, for months on end, that I just wasn't dealing with. I wasn't processing. I wasn't allowing myself to feel. I just kept shoving them down. And of course, what happens? You eventually have a breakdown. You can only fit so many things into a jar, and then soon it's going to overflow, right? You just can't do it. And so I had a full-on meltdown. Monday, I had to force myself to go to work. Obviously, I have to work. And I just remember moping around the house and If you know me, you know that I'm a very energetic, very outgoing person. I'm really silly. I'm really goofy. I love to joke around. I love to make people laugh. I mean, I remember even back in high school, my teachers could tell that something was wrong with me if I was too quiet in class. And so immediately, of course, everyone in the house could tell that something was wrong. And I don't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday, but I was in my room folding laundry, and Melissa yelled to me from the other room, and I responded, and I heard her walk to just outside my door. She wasn't in my room, but she was just outside my door, and she was like, "Are you okay?" Like, she knew. She could tell that something was wrong. And I was just like, I'm okay. And then I just lost it. I just started crying, like uncontrollably crying. And she was like, "What's wrong?" And I remember just saying, I just really miss Zaire. I just really miss home. I'm just feeling really overwhelmed. And, she's like really intuitive, and she can always tell when I'm upset. And she just has that mom vibe. You know that mom vibe where like you're upset about something, and then like you talk to your mom or like just a mom, and just all of a sudden you lose it and you just break down and start crying. It's just that mom vibe. And so, we talked it out a little bit, and I just, kept folding laundry. And for 2 days, I just would start crying out of nowhere, uncontrollably just crying. Zaire sent me like this cute care package, and she sent me this really nice letter and these pictures of the cats and then pictures of us and like all these nice like lotions and like a body scrub, and it was like so sweet. And I just broke down crying because it just made me miss her even more. It made me feel even worse for, letting her down and having her be stressed out because I couldn't get my shit together. And I was feeling some type of way about doing my part. So I remember for Monday and Tuesday, I was feeling so low. I was so mopey. It was hard to stay focused on work. It was hard to stay present with Maya. It was hard to just want to do anything. And I just wanted to lay in bed. I just wanted to watch TV. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to be super lazy. Weather was terrible as well, so obviously that didn't help. And then Wednesday, I woke up and there was sun. And I remember laying in bed and thinking to myself, okay, you've had your 2 days to sulk and mope and feel awful and do nothing. What are you going to do about this? You're still feeling these feelings. You're still feeling low. What are you going to do about this? And so the only thing I could think of to do that day was to sit down and write every single negative thing that I was thinking at the moment. If you don't write and if you don't journal, I highly recommend it, whether it's to get out negative emotions or negative thoughts, whether it's to journal and document your life, whether it's to track your growth or progress, whatever it is, I highly recommend journaling. It's so helpful and so important. So I sat down at my side table by my bed and I just wrote. I didn't stop. I just wrote every negative thing that was coming to my mind. I just wrote it all down. And about 3 pages later, I was like, okay, I'm done. I got it all out. I closed the journal. I was like, I need to go for a walk. I need to get some fresh air. I need sunshine. So I got the dog and I took the dog for a walk. We walked around the neighborhood. That was the turning point for me, was writing all that negative shit down and deciding, okay, I've dealt with this. I've felt these emotions. I've felt these feelings. Now it's time to deal with them, to process them, and to move on from them, and to ultimately do the things that I need to do to stop feeling this way. So I went on that walk, came back. I was still working, still feeling a little low, but I was feeling better. And then I was texting my friend Tiffany, and I had forgotten that we had talked about having a phone conversation this day because we needed to just catch up, and I wanted to hear what was going on with her. And she messaged me like, hey, like, can you talk? And I was like, yeah, like, that's a great idea. Perfect. I'll just go on another walk. So I called her, took the dog on another walk, And we ended up having like this amazing 2.5 hour conversation, which literally every time I have a conversation with Tiffany, it's amazing. She's an incredible individual and just one of the best people to talk to about just about anything and bounce ideas off of. And we just had this amazing conversation. So we started just catching up. She was telling me about, her recent move, and I was telling her about being in New York and my rough week and how I was feeling really negatively about whatever and how I had a breakdown. And she was kind of telling me she was feeling similar feelings and just stress and a lot of pressure with this project that she's working on. And so we started talking about the project, and it turned into this conversation about representation, which was the topic that I was trying to do my podcast on and failed at miserably. Now I was having a completely unwarranted conversation about representation with someone that I think is brilliant and that I think has incredible opinions. And she gave me so many ideas and allowed me to see that topic in a way that I had never really thought about it before. And it enlightened me in a way that I didn't even expect to be enlightened. And it completely changed my idea of the topic. And I just kind of paused and I was like, Tiffany, like this conversation, this is brilliant. I wasn't even thinking about this like this before. And then I asked her, I was like, could we set up a Zoom call maybe like sometime next week and record us having this exact same conversation about representation to put on my podcast? And she's like, yeah, of course. So the thing that ended up triggering this entire meltdown came full circle in this conversation with my friend, where without even realizing and without even knowing and without even trying, I kind of came up with a solution. All of this to say that sometimes we have breakdowns. They're completely normal. It's totally okay to have bad days and to have days where we don't feel great, where we don't feel like being happy and doing all the things that we usually do or whatever. That's totally fine. But if I would have just dealt with all of these feelings that I was having and all these emotions that I was having about feeling lonely, feeling isolated, feeling burnt out, missing home, feeling imposter syndrome, feeling not good enough to create and to have this podcast, when I had originally started to feel them, or if I didn't ignore them and I didn't push them down and try to hide them away, and I just dealt with them as they come, maybe the breakdown, maybe I still would have had a breakdown, but maybe it wouldn't have been so bad. Maybe it wouldn't have been completely paralyzing and completely crippling. Maybe I could have handled it a little bit better. But also when I look back on this experience and I look back on this week that I had, or this rough half a week that I had, I don't really so much look at the 2 days that I moped and that I sat around and didn't do anything and just kind of sulked in my feelings. Because at the time, that was what I needed. I needed to do that, and I'm glad that I did that. I don't regret any part of the experience because it was what I needed to get out. It was what I needed to do in that moment to feel okay. And then I was able to pull myself out eventually. But I share this, and I want to talk about our feelings and dealing with our feelings in positive and constructive ways, because I feel like a lot of people go through life not allowing themselves to fully feel or fully process moments like these, moments of weakness. Especially in the creative industry, I feel like, everything moves so fast. Time is money, is what they say. And so everything has to move like so quickly, and you have to stay consistent, and you have to just keep cranking things out and keep pumping things out to stay relevant. And this can really lead us to ignoring a lot of feelings and ignoring a lot of warning signs that our minds are giving us, our bodies are giving us, because we're just trying to stay ahead. We're trying to stay relevant. And so we start to ignore these feelings that we're feeling inside, and ultimately they just come to a head and they explode. So I think it's important for us to take things as they come. If you're feeling bad one day, you're having a rough day, feel that. Ride that out. Allow yourself to feel that bad day. Allow yourself to sit in that bad day. It's one bad day. We're not defined by one bad day. It's how do we learn from that bad day? What do we take away from that experience that helps us to ultimately grow? It's important to have people to come alongside you to love and support you through these tough times and through these tough feelings. I can't imagine how much differently this week would have been if I didn't reach out to the people around me for love and support. I mean, at first, those first 2 days, I kind of mainly kept to myself, and I didn't really want to share a lot, and I didn't really want to talk to people, but I slowly allowed myself to reach out a little bit more, and it was nice to have, Melissa and Chris being kind and supportive and there for me. One day, Chris came home and he had brought me chocolates, which was super thoughtful and sweet, and having Zaire to rely on for support has been so crucial in my time being here. And, then being able to have that conversation with Tiffany that completely turned my week around and really inspired me and encouraged me. And having everybody who reached out to me via social media in response to a video I posted about, not being able to record my episode last week or struggling with that. A bunch of people reached out to me and were super encouraging and supportive. And I think it's really important to realize, yes, we need to deal with our feelings, and yes, we need to deal with our emotions, and we need to process them in healthy and constructive ways, but we can't always do that alone. Maybe sometimes we can, and sometimes we think that we can, but we're not meant to do it alone. We can rely on the people around us, our communities, whether it's maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a lover, whatever it is. It's important to know that we have people around us that support us and that we can rely on, that we're not alone to deal with and process these feelings, that it's important to reach out and to connect with people ultimately so that we can grow and become better. We can learn from these moments of negativity and negative feelings and pain and whatever it may be. So, all that to say, I just want to encourage you. I know right now times are crazy and times are hard. There are a lot of people who are feeling alone and isolated, people that are jobless and feeling scared or worried about what they're going to do with their lives or what they're going to do with the future or how things are going to work out for them or whatever it is. There's a lot of anxiety right now. And there's a lot of feelings. I've been feeling so many feelings. I mean, we've almost been in COVID lockdown for a year at this point. A lot of feelings have been coming out, I think, for a lot of people over the last year. And I really just want to encourage you, find constructive ways, find helpful ways to process your emotions, to deal with our emotions, to feel through those hard moments, and ultimately come out better on the other side of it. The more that we push down our emotions and the more that we don't deal with them, the more it starts to create this black hole inside of us. And eventually it has to get out. We can't keep it in there forever. So if we can learn to process our emotions and learn to deal with our feelings as they come, it becomes easier to do it the next time. It becomes easier to find healthy and constructive practices to ultimately make ourselves more peaceful. And I think that should be our goal every single day is, what can I do today to feed my soul, to make me feel more peaceful, to make me feel more grounded and more balanced? What are constructive ways that I can help other people? So I know this is a bit more of an abstract idea and not exactly like the other topics that I've already discussed, but I just felt the need to share this experience. At first, I didn't even want to talk about why there was no podcast last week or why it's Tuesday at this point and I still don't have a podcast out this week. I kind of just wanted to ignore it and not deal with it and not even talk about it. And I kind of figured that's doing exactly what I know not to do. And the best way that I know how to deal with things and get over things is to talk about them and process them. And so in turn, this is kind of therapy for me to be able to get it out. And hopefully this is something that you guys can all relate to, because I know that right now it's really easy to just sit in our negative feelings and sit in our negative thoughts. And I just want to encourage you to know that it's okay to do that, but we can't let that control and dictate our lives. At some point, we have to choose to let go of those feelings, to move on from them. So I hope that this is helpful to somebody or encouraging to somebody. I hope that maybe you can find tools or ideas from this to implement into your own life. I want to thank you again for watching, for being encouraging and supporting me on this journey. If you think that this will benefit somebody, please share with them. I really am grateful for the love and support I've been getting from everybody embarking on this new creative adventure. And I really appreciate everybody who's taken the time out of their days to listen to these podcasts or send me messages or give me feedback. As always, if you have any additional comments, questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. My channels are always open. They're always available for anybody who needs anything. Whether you need encouragement, support, or you want to talk more about ways that I process my feelings or ways that I work through difficult feelings, please reach out. Share this with anyone that you think it might benefit. I hope you all are staying safe and healthy and well and creative and lovely and beautiful. And I love you all. I thank you all. I'm grateful for all of you. And I will catch you in the next one.